On today's episode, we're going to talk about a problem that a few teams do face, and that is, how do you win now without messing up what comes next in your future? Because apparently the Golden State Warriors, who didn't miss out on the LeBron James sweepstakes, are now having the conversation around how you continue to contend now without mortgaging your future. And that's what it seems like the Golden State Warriors are, is they're preparing for a future without Steph, which was a big question if they were going to do that and how much they were ready to just kind of let this go the way that it's going to go. So we're talking a little bit about that. Plus the Miami Heat also reportedly waiting on Klay Thompson before they fill out the rest of their roster. And Philly just officially added another wing to their team. We're talking about all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of the Full Court Podcast. My name is Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow us at the Full Court YT on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into it for today, y'all. So the Golden State Warriors are apparently building for what comes after Steph. Now, this is probably the right pace to go, right? Now, it seemed like the Warriors were kind of willing to kind of go all in and even trade some of their future assets, to try to build a winner now around Steph. But it seems like now, maybe after missing out on LeBron, that has since changed. This comes from Tim Kawakami, who says this: what team governor Joe Lacob wants to do, and this might get Warriors fans mad, he wants to build the next team after Steph Curry. I don't know how possible that is, but Lacob has a very keen interest in the organization is going to show what it can do with Steph Curry and then after Steph Curry. Now, many people will remember that the Warriors were trying to have the two-timeline thing. They were trying to be the two-timeline kings, and to their credit, they were able to win a championship with the light of those young players on the team, but it never really materialized the way that they hoped. Jordan Poole's gone. He's off the team. Jonathan Kuminga never really turned into what they wanted him to turn into and stuff like that. Even another young player that they acquired over the last few years, and Quentin Post, he's gone and out of the building as well, right? So they were never able to really capitalize on that two-timeline thing that they had hoped was going to be the future. Gary Payton II left and came back and stuff like that. So now they're trying to look at that future and what that looks like without Steph. And it's going to get difficult, right? Now, they were reportedly, open to maybe including a future first to get, Anthony Davis if those trade talks went through, which then would have led them to get LeBron. And maybe it would have been worth it. Maybe it would have been worth it to mortgage your future even further if you could have won one more championship with Steph and have LeBron in here and all those type of things. But now the Warriors are facing what a lot of teams have to face, and that is, yes, you have a talented player in Steph on this team. Dre is still going to be on this team, right? You have that. You brought back Kristaps Porzingis and stuff like that. You even drafted one of the oldest players in this draft at Yaxel Lindenberg at 24 years old. But the fact is, you have to start looking towards your future. And that's what they have to consider in regards to this one. Now, they do have their own first-round pick in 28, 29, and 30, right? You have that part of it. Also 32, 33 as well. So, you have your own first-round pick. The only first-round pick that you have going out is the one to Memphis in 2031, I believe. That one's going out to Memphis. So you have that part of it. But now the Warriors have to ask themselves, what does the future look like without Steph? And we don't exactly know what that's going to look like, right? This is the smart, though, long-term planning the teams need to be real with themselves about, right? If you want to build the next vision of this franchise, you have to start taking those future assets seriously, right? And so you're going to need flexibility. And flexibility is the king, especially when you're, you have a superstar that's aging and they eventually go and phase out and stuff like that, right? Now, of course, nobody, I think, is going to make the argument that Steph doesn't deserve one more all-in push, but it seems like those moves have dried out. Now, the Warriors are probably going to keep their eye out if something does happen, namely anything that they can use Jimmy Butler's contract with, because reportedly, even Jimmy Butler has made some substantial moves up in his recovery, but he's in a $56 million expiring contract. And while Steph is technically an expiring contract, we all kind of expect Steph Curry to come back, especially with, Dre probably getting a new contract and stuff like this. Kristaps Porzingis has a one-year deal basically with a player option in 2027, as does Al Horford. So it seems like that 2-year, right? At the end of the 2027-28 season, I would not be surprised if a lot of the decisions that they make, are all kind of built around, listen, let's try to get Steph to compete up into that point. And if we can't, it's time to move on. Not to say that they're going to move on from Steph or not re-sign Steph. Steph is probably going to play in Golden State as long as he wants to play there. But you have to come to the realization at some point, what you have to do is you have to start planning for your future. Now, Yaxel Lindenberg is an older rookie, and I always kind of point that out when I talk about him. But even if he has a 10-year career, like that still only puts him at 34 years old. So he could be part. And, he has a really high floor, I think, with Yaxel Lindenberg in regards to that. But this is now the reality check that they face after missing out on LeBron, right? Now, was it a blessing? Maybe, right? It depends on what they're able to do with their future assets. If the Golden State Warriors, let's say 4 or 5 years after Steph, have another team that's looking really good, you have a nice young core, and you have a core that you feel like, hey, we can actually do something with this, then yeah, it's worth it. Now, if you ended up, still being trash in 4 or 5 years after Steph, then maybe you could have, right? Of course, LeBron would have raised the ceiling and the floor immediately. Steph and LeBron would have been really fun. It would have been historic to see. But at the same time, like, there's no guarantee, especially in a Western Conference, that even been adding LeBron, you would have even made a Western Conference Finals, much less an NBA Finals. Like, that is the reality that you have to ask yourself here. So the LeBron dream was fun, but now they're off of that, and they have to look at the reality of where they are. So the question for the Golden State Warriors becoming right now, should the Warriors trade future assets for a star if one becomes available, or should they play the patient side of it? Of course, the side of it with Steph is that you have Steph Curry still playing at a high level when he's fully healthy. You just can't deny that, right? You have still a great coach in Steve Kerr there, still coaching the team. But you're going to need more than just nostalgia if you're going to try to really build a competitive team in the Western Conference. But I think that the side that I err on more is the protect the future side. The West is loaded. And I just don't know if the Warriors, if there's any trade out there that puts the Warriors able to compete with the San Antonio Spurs, of course, the OKC Thunder, the Houston Rockets, if they get their shit together this year, like all those type of teams that are there, even the Denver Nuggets, right? The Minnesota Timberwolves. Like, it's going to be so difficult to build a team that really competes with those guys. And it's already going to be hard to build post the Steph Curry era. And I think, without having, if all your assets are washed up and your asset chest in a way is empty at that point, it's going to be even more difficult for you. So I think that, yes, Golden State should stay aggressive to a degree, but not reckless. That's where they should stay in this, is not be reckless. There's a difference between honoring Steph Curry and trying to compete with him and then sacrificing potentially the next half a decade to decade trying to chase something that you may just not acquire even at the best move that could be possibly available there to you. So, like, keep your eye open, right? Keep those things open to yourself, but realize it may just not be there. And I guess we'll see what's going to happen in regards to that one. But another team, when we talked a little bit about this, is that reportedly now the Miami Heat are waiting on Klay Thompson before they make any decision about what's going to come next from their team. This comes from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, who talks about this, saying this: the Miami Heat have a handful of roster spots to fill before the regular season. They've been linked to several veteran wing shooters and scorers with one particular target in mind. The Heat are focused on adding Klay Thompson, even if it's unclear if the veteran wing will part ways with the Dallas Mavericks. Thompson is owed $17.5 million in the final year of his contract with the Mavs. It's unknown if the player or team has interest in a buyout. Dallas is facing a bit of a roster crunch with 16 players on standard contracts for just 15 roster spots. While Miami is willing to wait on Thompson, they are keeping tabs with other veterans like DeMar DeRozan, Bradley Beal, who declined a player option with the Los Angeles Clippers as well. So we'll see, right? The Miami Heat need shooting. And I understand. I said this on yesterday's episode where we talked about all the plan B. Russell Westbrook was included in the name at that time in that regard too. And it makes sense for them all there. But Klay is probably the more natural fit. And especially if him and Dallas do reach a buyout because of where they are with their contracts, it's there. Like, Klay is worth having on this team. He's still a guy that's a movement shooter. He still brings gravity in that area. He fits really cleanly around Bam and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and even in the backcourt with Davion Mitchell as well. There's a fit that's naturally happens there. Even one could say Wiggins there at the 3 also. So if a buyout happens, he could be the best value option, because then he's not going to be looking to replicate his full contract, right? But I do think this: Miami still has to be careful and not wait too long. They don't want to do what Golden State did last year, for example, to where they didn't have a full 15-man roster until like 2 days before training camp. You don't want that, right? And so if Dallas does prefer a trade over a buyout and they try to push for that, and you have multiple roster spots to fill, I think you have to kind of go out there and just do what you need to do, and then maybe revisit it later down the road if you need to do that, right? You don't want to wait too long to where then you're scrambling rather than moving with a conviction. And that's what the Miami Heat have to avoid in this, in my personal opinion. Klay is probably the cleanest, plan B shooter that's out there, and we'll see. And the question still remains is there the plan B. It seems like it's Bradley Beal, DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson, and some have mentioned Russell Westbrook as well, right? And I do think Bill and DeMar DeRozan give more creation at this point than Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's still the best fit in my personal opinion, but they give him more creation, especially DeMar in the half court. I just worry about how the fit with Giannis would work there. Bradley Beal can shoot, and he can create off the bounce as well, right? And he's more of a shooter than what DeMar is, but not the shooter that Klay is. Maybe they're more even now at this point, right? So that's the questions that they have to ask themselves. And we'll see what the Miami Heat end up doing. But, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, I trust them to make the right decision in regards to that one. And I'll say this too. A bigger issue that maybe the Miami Heat have that not a lot of people are talking about is you don't have an actual pure center. And that's not to say that Bam can play center and they can be perfectly fine, but you at least want, I would think, a backup there, right, at the very least. And that's where the Miami Heat also have to take looks at. Now, maybe Nick Richards, somebody who's out there in the market, and I think they were mentioned as a team that could be interested in him. They could pivot towards that as well. But, this is still a team that does need some more depth on it at the center position as well. Bobby Portis can play some center also, so maybe they feel confident in that. Maybe. We'll see what happens in regards to that one. But shooting is still the top priority for the Miami Heat. All right, moving on from that, the deal that we talked about that could happen actually happened. KCP was bought out by the Memphis Grizzlies, and he plans on signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. And it's a great fit. Like, KCP was on the LeBron championship team, I think, right? I know he was with LeBron on the Lakers, so I think he did, one with LeBron in that 2020 team, I believe. And so, you add another veteran defender who can still shoot a little bit for you as well. 1 year, $3.9 million is the reported deal. It's limited risk in regards to that. That's the type of deal that you want to sign as you're trying to build a championship team, right? But there are some concerns. KCP's three-point shooting has declined over the last few years. He missed the final 31 games of last season with a finger injury as well. And they're going to have to ask themselves and have a realistic answer on how much does KCP have left in the tank. I think they'll probably be fine with that one. You just make sure you're not doing it off reputation alone and actually chasing the fit. As long as they do that, they'll be fine. But that's your quick Sunday update on the news around the NBA. Let me know your guys' thoughts on everything down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at The Full Court YT on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making an episode. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.